Welcome to the Corporate Crime Uncovered, the podcast where we dive deep into some of the most jaw-dropping corporate scandal from around the world. I am Nash,
And I'm Joshua, your partner in crime. Well, in uncovering corporate crimes, not committing them, just to be clear.
That's a good save. And today we're diving into one of Australia's biggest corporate scandals, the 2017 Commonwealth Bank of Australia money laundering fiasco. This one is a wild ride, full of cash deposit, ATM, and a lot of heads being scratched.
Or rolled, depending on who you ask. So let's get into it. The Commonwealth Bank of Australia, or CBA, was one of the largest and most trusted banks in Australia. Well, at least until this scandal hit.
Yes, the kind of trust where you leave your dog with your neighbor for the weekend. Except in this case, the neighbor forgot to lock the door and 53,000 shady people came in and out.
Exactly. So here's what happened. Between 2012 and 2015, CBA failed to report over 53,000 suspicious transactions. These transactions were made through something called the Intelligent Deposit Machines, or IDMs. They're kind of like ATMs on steroids, allowing people to deposit large sums of cash up to $20,000 at a time.
And when we say large sums, we don't mean your average Friday night cash out at the pub or bar. We're talking millions of dollars being deposited with very few questions being asked. And it's like the bank was in the ultimate no judgment zone.
And criminals were loving it. These machines allowed them to anonymously deposit money, and the CBA systems weren't exactly eager to ask, hey, where does this cash come from? The red flags were flying, but no one was paying attention.
Yeah, it was like having a house party where the cops drive by and just wave. Everything looks fine here, but it wasn't fine at all. Austrac, Australian financial crime regulator, stepped in and was like, wait a minute, what is going on here?
Exactly. In 2017, Austrac launched a lawsuit against CBA, accusing them of breaching anti-money laundering laws. And we're not talking about small violations here. Austrac found out that some of the transactions were even linked to serious criminal activities like drug trafficking and terrorism financing.
So this wasn't just a case of oops, we missed a few deposits. This was a full-blown legal nightmare. Austrac essentially said, you let criminal wash their dirty money, and now you have to clean up the mess.
Speaking of cleaning up, how much did this little mistake cost them? A cool 700 million dollars in fines, the largest civil penalty in Australia history at the time.
Whoa, Josh, that's a lot of money. You could buy a fleet of yachts or like a small islands. Or well, you could actually pay those fines. CBA didn't exactly shrug that off either. Their CEO, Ian Narev, ended up resigning over the scandal. And it was also a tough time for the bank leadership team as well.
Yeah, I imagine the meetings were like, so, remember when we were a trusted financial institution? Good time. The public faith in CBA was shaking. The fallout didn't stop there. The bank had to completely overhaul its anti-money laundering systems.
Let's talk about those systems for a second. Before this, CBA approached to suspicious transaction. Well, let's just say relax, kind of like trying to spot a needle in a haystack, but deciding the haystack not really a problem.
After Ostrom stepped in, CBA had to beef up their monitoring. New systems were introduced, better tracking of large deposits were implemented, and most importantly, they started doing something wild, reporting suspicious activities.
And who knew that would be a good idea? But joke aside, this scandal wasn't just a wake-up call for CBA. It sent shockwaves through Australia's entire banking sector. Other banks started reviewing their practices and making sure they weren't next in Austria's crosshair.
And honestly, the scandal raises an important question. How does a bank this big let something like this happen so long? Did they think nobody would notice? Or were they just hoping it would sort itself out?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not like the criminal left them a thank you note after each deposit, right? CBA had the system in place to catch this transaction, but they either weren't used properly or they just turned a blind eye mode on.
It's the classic case of technology moving faster than rules. The IDMs were meant to make life easier for customers, but they end up being a goldmine for money launderers. Innovation is great, but it has to be backed up with responsibility.
Yes, and that is the real takeaway here. You can have all the fancy machine and digital tools, but if you're not keeping an eye on how they're being used, you're just opening the door to trouble. And what I mean by trouble here is a big trouble.
So what did CPA learn from all this? Well, besides having to pay the $700 million fine, they learned that regulatory compliance is not optional, it's essential. The damage to their reputation, the public trust, and their own internal structure was severe.
And it's also a case of corporate greed and complacency. The money was rolling in, so why rock the boat, right? But that boat eventually sank, and it took $700 million live raft to keep them afloat back.
So folks, if there's a lesson to be learned from here, it's this. Always report suspicious activity. And if you're ever tempted to deposit $20,000 in cash at your local ATM, maybe don't, or at least make sure it's not tied to a drug cartel.
Yeah, that's a very solid advice. Well, that's all for today's episode of Corporate Crime Uncovered. We hope you enjoy our deep dive into Commonwealth Bank scandal and maybe learn something along the way.
Thanks for joining us, and if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe. Next time, we'll be covering another scandal that proves some companies will stop at nothing when it comes to breaking the rules.
Until then, stay smart, stay safe, and keep your transaction clean. Bye for now.
Bye.